In the psychiatrist's office, teenager Max says he wishes he could be normal, but he can't. The reason his entire face is covered in ice is because he was born with a face so handsome that it could kill anyone who saw it. At least it wasn't a painful death, as they were usually happy to see her beautiful face. Max recounts the story of his birth, explaining that he killed the nurses and doctors at the hospital who had seen his face, but fortunately his parents were immune to their son's beauty. Studies carried out on this day show that his face is so beautiful that it causes a hormonal surge that immediately ends a person's life. Because of this, the family had to move to a small town and take as many precautions as possible, such as deciding to homeschool Max to protect him and the other kids. Unfortunately, this resulted in Max growing up alone and very sheltered, and he was also clumsy when dealing with people. His hobbies are also unusual. He loves to embroider. The psychologist did not believe the story and forced Max to reveal his face. Suddenly, Max's parents heard a strange noise coming from the psychiatrist's office. When they rushed inside, they found Max bandaged and the psychologist dead on the floor. Soon, the police arrive and advise the parents that they cannot continue to treat these deaths as an accident, so Max should be more careful or he will end up in jail. While the adults were talking, Max saw a brick and picked it up and brought it home. Later at his house, Max's parents tell him that they don't like him staying home all day, and ask Max's only friend Dan to put him on a dating app, which upsets Max. Later in his room, Max asks Dan to hit him with a brick to stop him from being deadly handsome. When Dan got too distracted from his phone and the notifications from his dating app, Max threw him to the ground, prompting Dan to punch him the way he wanted. Eventually, Max went to the hospital with his mother, and in the waiting room, the mother read in a magazine that they were looking for host families for exchange students, which might be an opportunity to bring another teenager home for her. Max, have a friend. Max hated the idea and went looking for another magazine but found the price empty. A girl named Alex owns the latest magazine and decides to share it with him, prompting the two teenagers to chat for a while before Max is called by the doctor. Sometime later, Dan decides to try to cheer Max up by setting him up on a blind date. They meet the girl at the restaurant, and Dan talks to break the ice, but as soon as he leaves, things get extremely awkward. The girl was clearly doubting her appearance, so to be more friendly, Max handed her a handkerchief that he had embroidered with her name. Things start to go well, but suddenly a noise warns them that Craig is causing trouble in the restaurant. The guy suddenly walks over to their table and sits down with them with the intention of flirting with the girl. But he sees Max's tape and realizes he is the guy in the murder story. He is very rude and scary, so Max tries to leave to avoid getting into trouble, accidentally hitting their drink as he stood up. Craig threw the handkerchief into the liquid to taunt Max and continued to pressure him to reveal his face, even pushing him against the table to please him. Fortunately, the restaurant staff took advantage of this moment to kick Craig out of the house. Later, Max asked the girl out on another date, but she was now scared and refused. After such a disastrous date, Max thinks he will never have a normal life, so he goes to the nearest bridge to try to end it. Suddenly, Alex shows up and teases him about what he's doing, which sparks a conversation about his life, his candies, and Max's dream of swimming in a candy jar. To distract him, Alex invites Max to come along and they take a bus to the nursing home, where he introduces her to Rosemary and Esther, two terminally ill old women. However, they were still very lively, and the four of them spent a wonderful afternoon together. Sharing tea and snacks, they learn that Esther is trying to write one more book before she dies, but that is difficult because of her Alzheimer's disease. After leaving the nursing home, Alex takes Max home and Max wonders if they will ever see each other again. But Alex says no. Sometime later, Max goes out with Dan, and Dan tells Max that he shouldn't give up. Since Max can't look up Alex on social media because he doesn't know her last name, Dan thinks he should go around the places where he's met her and try to meet her. That night, Max made an embroidered design on the bridge moment. The next morning, Max decided to go back to the bus stop and realized that Alex had purposely missed his bus. Alex is a bit wary of him at first, but then she agrees to have fun together. They go to the store and buy lots of marshmallows to refill Max's bathroom tub, eventually making his dream come true. Because of this, Alex confessed that she enjoyed swimming in a frozen river. While enjoying the candy bath, Max finally shows him his deadly face, but Alex suspects him to be the narrator. In return, Alex explains that she has a rare cardiovascular condition that causes her to be allergic to endorphins. The excitement causes inflammation, causing his heart to grow. Alex then shows that under her coat she always has to wear a device that monitors the size of her heart and explains that her body rejects emotions. Currently, she is taking an experimental drug to solve this problem. Hearing all this, Max felt like someone finally understood his plight. After that, they went to the movies and got drunk while filming, laughing at every detail. They then go to Max's house, and Alex is able to admire her embroidery, which prompts him one day to ask to draw her. Suddenly, Alex got too close to him and took off his jacket. Sunglasses scared Max for a moment. Luckily, his eyes can't kill on their own, and now the two teenagers are having a sweet moment that could end with a kiss. Unfortunately, at that very moment, Max's parents arrive and ruin the moment. The teenagers quickly separated, but the parents understood what was going on and were shocked. Max's mother is so happy that Max has finally met a girl, so she hugs Alex. The parents also introduce them to Yu Shen, an exchange student who will now live with them, who also brings a cat. However, she is quite antisocial and often ignores her family. Even at dinner time, she ordered her own food so she could feed herself. Since then, Max and Alex started hanging out together often, and they often went to the nursing home to drink tea or play games with Rosemary and Esther. One day, the teenagers decided to go camping, and Max got into a fight with his parents, who forced him to take Yu Shen with him. The next day, the group goes to the forest consisting of Max, Alex, Yu Shen, Dan, and his last date. As always, Yu Shen ignored them, but the others were happy to explore and take pictures. When Alex accidentally injured his hand by a tree branch, Max cut some bandages on his face to cover the wound, making Alex's heart beat a little faster. That night, they set up camp, and Dan and his daughter hid under a blanket for some privacy while Yu Shen slept. Max decides to follow Dan's lead and covers him and Alex with blankets, then prepares a surprise. He told her to close her eyes before covering them with a bandage. Then he took her hand so she could touch his face and feel what he looked like. Max confesses that he killed the girl who gave him his first kiss because she broke the rules and opened her eyes, so Alex comforted him by kissing her. Getting off the blanket. A few days later, Alex called Max to tell him that they couldn't see each other today because his mother needed him to help with some household chores. Then Max's mother asked him to remove their old Christmas tree, so Max pulled it out with Dan's help. Meanwhile, Yu Shen was smoking, and when she threw away the cigarette, she accidentally burned the tree. Dan and Max rush in to try to delay this, and Dan accidentally burns his hand, so they take him to the hospital. After Dan takes care of his hands, the boys try to leave, but meet Alex and his mother. Turns out Alex was lying and she was there all day. The boys try to introduce themselves, but Alex tells his mother that they are just colleagues at the nursing home, and they leave without saying anything. The next day, Max goes shopping with his father and knew that her son loved Alex, but it might not have been obvious to her, so he should have told her directly. In the afternoon, Alex and Max go out again, and Alex explains that she had to lie yesterday because her mother didn't like her having friends, thinking that getting too excited could kill her. Her mother only agreed to go to a nursing home because it was a boring place. They then visit the nursing home and are deeply saddened to learn that Rosemary is dying. They visit her in her bedroom and discover that she is being kept alive by machines, which disgusts Alex because she believes that people can die a decent death. She asks Max to show Rosemary his face so she can die in peace, and when Max refuses, Alex leaves alone. Thinking of Rosemary's grief, Max changed his mind with a sweet smile on his face. After this incident, Alex doesn't reply to Max's texts anymore and he doesn't know what to do. His parents try to offer some advice, but it just ends in an argument and Max leaves to hang out with Dan. His friend has good news. There's going to be a party at the local school, and Dan thinks Max should go even though he's homeschooled. Max was too nervous to do anything, so Dan picked up the phone and texted Alex asking him to dance. Since he didn't get an answer, Max went to Alex's house to ask her why she was ignoring him. Alex confesses that the experimental drug doesn't work, and his heart gets bigger and bigger. They argue about her pushing him away, but Max stays together and Alex eventually agrees to go dance with him. On the day of the party, Alex appeared with 2 funny outfits that she bought at the adult store. She's going there as a maid, and for Max she has a dog mask and a horn so he can become a horned dog. When they went to school, they danced and flirted with each other happily. At first, the music is fast-paced and catchy, but then turns into a slow, romantic melody that ties them together. This tense moment made Alex's heart beat dangerously fast and gave her a nosebleed, so she rushed to deal with it. While Max waits, he spends time with Dan and his date, but that moment is interrupted when Craig arrives to disturb them. He was jealous that Dan was dating his ex and wanted revenge for what happened at the restaurant, so while his friends grabbed Dan, Craig grabbed Max and took off his mask, which instantly kills Dan's date. People started panicking when the police came to arrest Max by putting a bag over his head. As he leaves, he notices Alex being taken away by an ambulance. That night, Max was locked in a cell. The next morning, Max is released and goes to the hospital, where Alex's mother hugs him to share his grief. Then Max visits Alex and learns that she's been lying the whole time. She minimizes it. It turned out that she was indeed suffering from an incurable disease, and from an early age she knew that she would die at that age. Alex is only a few days old and hates being hooked up to a machine in the hospital. So she asks Max to reveal his face to her. Max refuses because he doesn't want to see her die and attacks her, explaining that he has watched people die all his life and it costs him dearly. Then he left, refusing to listen to her anymore. When Max got home, he felt so uncomfortable that he used bricks for plastic surgery, but his parents immediately came to stop him. They held him back as he collapsed, but grieving but still takes some time to scold Max for ignoring Alex, making him realize that he will miss his chance to say goodbye. The next day, Max visits Alex in the hospital and covers the wall with his embroideries to apologize. He also showed her that he drew her. Alex's condition got worse, so Max lay down next to Alex and took off his bandages. Then they closed their eyes and kissed, expecting the worst. When Max opens his eyes, he's shocked to see Alex still alive, but she's so overjoyed to finally see the real Max that her heart can't take it and she's still dead. At least she had a smile on her face because she remembered all charges because the girl's death was considered natural cause. However, the case became famous, and Max began to receive many letters from dying people asking him for help. Max begins to